Hello, viewers. The show that you all been anticipating for the Your Time show. This is the first episode of it, and with me today, I have two handsome gentlemen with me. I'll allow them to introduce themselves.
Hello viewers, just as you said, welcome to the first part of Your Time Show. I am Ibrahim Boy. I'm also a co-host to the show. So here with me, we have a special guest. Of course, yes, I call him my boss, and he is the able boss here. So let's allow him to introduce himself.
Thank you very much, Ibrahima. Hello, viewers. I am Khalifa Jabi, a third-year student from the University of the Gambia, studying English language and a minor in Agric. A teacher also, online reporter, blogger, a social commentator, and also a prolific poet. I write under the pen name called The Poet. Thank you very much.
Interesting biography. I would like you to take us through your biography because I've learned that you were former IPRO of Young Writers Association of the Gambia. Can you brief us about your experience at the Young Writers Association as an IPRO?
Thank you very much. Though my position as an IPR of Your Writers Association of the Gambia was short-lived due to the nature of the things, because when I was given that position, it was when I was in Badibu during my teaching. When I was doing my teaching in Badibu, I was given that position. So at the end of the day, they realized that due to the distance, and I was a little bit disconnected with some of the things that are happening on the ground, I was later removed from the position of IPRO and then given the assistant position also there. So basically, that was my experience there.
Okay. I also noticed that you're a pioneer of Sukuto 1C Press Club, Executive Director of Glow Gambia, Secretary General of Armitage Ex Students Association, Assistant Secretary General for Edusha, co-founder, reporter, and content producer for Ifambondi online newspaper. Khalifa alias Khal the Poet is also a prolific writer and has written more than 100 poems. Indeed, you are Khal the Poet. Yeah, so I'll allow Ibrahim to go through.
Yes, let me have a face-to-face with my boss.
Okay.
Anyway, the first question I want to ask you, what inspired you to do poetry? Like looking at literature, we have different genres of literature. Why do you choose poetry over drama or over?
Thank you very much, Ibrahima. I mean, one of the best poets that I look after in this country, though you will always argue that I am your boss in this field that I call a religion. Okay, basically I was inspired by the works of Mr. Michael Hamadiseka when I was in grade 7. During those days, especially when you were a student in the rural areas, it was very, very difficult for us to be, connected with some of these things that are always happening around this area here. So when I was in grade 7, I was fortunate to have a book written by Michael Hamadiseka. Actually, there were two books, Education in Tears and Women in Dress, and also Love, Infatuation, and Broken Hearts. So when I was reading these books, that was the time that I started building passion for poetry and other stuff. In fact, that was the first time that I knew there is something in literature called poetry. So when I read some of the works of Michael Hamadiseka, I was inspired by the way he put words and sometimes also the mood and the tone of the writings. So when I went up to grade 8 also, I started following his write-ups on other books also. So during the holiday going to grade 9, a friend of mine told me that this man, Michael Hamadiseka, that I was always praying so that one day I can eventually meet him so that I can learn more about this poetry and other stuff. So when they told me that Michael Hamadiseka was about to be our principal, I over-celebrated that. So during my grade 9, this man, Mr. Michael Hamadiseka, happened to be my principal. So sometimes he will come to the stage, he'll be reciting poems there. So I was basically inspired by some of his works and the things that he will be saying. Yeah.
Wow, that's great. That is so great. Like looking at all what you say here, like about Michael Hamadiseka. Of course, yes, he's a great writer that every young Gambian who wants to be a writer must look up to him. Like looking at you were saying because of the mood in his works and so forth. Yes, and I also read your works. Most of your works are very interesting. As I said earlier, I am a fan and also Eugene, I've been following you. Okay, so I just wanted to know, when did you start writing, or if you can recall, what was your first piece?
Okay, thank you very much. Though it will be very, very difficult for me to remember some of the first pieces that I have written. Like I said, my grade 7 and 8, I had a lot of passion for poetry, and grade 9, but that time I did not know how to write because it was very, very difficult for me to put pieces together. So when I went to grade 10, 11, 12, we all know that it is a norm in this country here. Whenever you produce a good result, they will take you to science instead of arts. So when I was taking to science class in Armitage, that made me to be a little bit disjointed with this poetry stuffs and literature. So my focus was on these science areas, maths and other stuffs. So it was after my grade 12 that I began to realize my potential in writing. So I started writing pieces on the back of books when I was going to college, on some pieces in my laptop. But I can tell you my breakthrough came in around year 2012 when Armitage Ex-Students Association came along with what we call a newsletter in a form of a magazine. So they asked potential writers to write pieces, stories, poems, and other stuffs. So I also tried to try my chance there. I wrote one of the first poems that I wrote were Mr. Keda, the then principal of Armitage. I wrote a title, Mr. Keda, because during his formative years in Armitage, he was doing an amazing job there, producing very wonderful results, excellent results, 100% passes across. So I said, I think this is a man that needs to be celebrated. So that was the first poem I think that I can remember I wrote for him. And then the feedback from friends were very positive, and that I think gave me the encouragement to push ahead.
Oh, that's very important. And normal in the art of literature, this is the most important thing. Once you are writing something that people are appreciating, that gives you more courage and confidence for you to go in for this. Likewise, the same experience was what I also felt. Right? Okay, like here, looking at it, we have different types of writers. We have writers called the diver writers, writers who just jump and just write their own planning. And we also have example, like we have the grand plan writers, people who plan. We have the architect writer. So which type of writer do you think? How do you write?
For me, I don't think I belong to any specific, category of writers. Sometimes I will start writing a poem. For example, I will be in a vehicle, I will see something, I said, well, let me start writing a poem on this particular thing. So I will just start my phone, take my phone and start writing poems. Sometimes I'll wait until late nights, when the environment is cool, I have, less disturbance. That is the time that I will start writing my poems. Or sometimes even, I come from a place that is not far from the river. Sometimes I'll go to the riverside, sit down and write poems there. Sometimes I will start a poem, I will not complete it until maybe 2 or 3 months later. Because if you look at the types of poems that I write, most of my poems are these, poems which at the end of the day they will have that rhyming style. Yeah. So if you want to have that, if you have to have that consistency in that writing, sometimes you have to take your time. I will come along with a line 2 or 3 days later. I will say no, this line is not okay. I will scrap that line and come along with that another line. But there are also sometimes which that conditions will push me to start writing a poem and finish it on that particular day. Especially when I am a little bit emotional, or sometimes I'm very happy, I can sit down and start writing a poem, then I will finish it. Because most of my poems are either 16-line or 20-line poems. Yeah.
Okay, you've heard from the side of Carl the poet. He has took us through interesting things about his life. So we'll go for a commercial break, and when we're back, the show still continues.
Welcome to the Gambia. This is where we call the Land of Smiling Coast.
Okay, welcome back, viewers. It's still the YourTime show with me having two handsome gentlemen in the studio. Rather, I'm Mentor Ibrahima Boy and still Carl the poet. I'll allow Ibrahima to continue with his questioning session.
All right, welcome back. Okay, now we just continue from where we started. Let's hit the ground running, my boss.
Okay.
So I just want us to talk about this. Like when you talk about poetry, we have different types of poets. We have the metaphysicals, we have the romantics, we have the Elizabethans, we have the patriarchal. Which class of poet do you think you belong, or do you think that you fancy the most?
Thank you very much, Ibrahim. I think basically that will take me back to the answer that I gave you in your previous question. For me, I am diverse. Sometimes I can write these romantic poems. One of my best poems that people will always talk about is daytime romance. sometimes. So I think, yeah. So sometimes I also talk about, poems which that, they talk about, lives, just like the eco poetry poets, like the likes of the way this guy will write his poem, Tijan Sala and other stuff. So I am diverse. I write different types of poem. I don't belong to any specific poetry writers.
You diversify your skills. So you indicate what I call the diversification of skills in poetry, right? No problem. So I read your pieces. Like there was a piece that you wrote called A Night in Lamin Koto. Yes, A Night in Lamin Koto. I read that piece and I was seeing the Africanness in you. Like the love you were trying to portray in that that village. Can you explain what inspired that poem, A Night in Lamin Koto?
Very good. I think the background of that poem comes from my very good friend Sanaba Jaula. There was a day that we were disturbing each other. He come from a nearby village, Kunding. So sometimes, this village rivalry. So he was talking to me, telling me that your village is like this, your village has only one shop or whatsoever. I told him, no problem. I think I must come along with a piece to refute your district. So when I went home, I thought about some of the things that I found in my village. Most especially, the village is located around the river. If you know Makati, just a crossing point to the river. So we are having these lodges, restaurants and other stuff. So I went to one of the restaurants, took a picture there, and then I told him that A Night in Lamin Koto. So if you look at the piece of that writing, you'll realize that most of the things that I try to portray there were things that are actually found in my village. So I was trying basically to celebrate life in my village.
That's interesting. Very few people will take ownership of where they belong. Some people will tend to forget where they come from. But then actually you were trying to give a more beautiful color of your village.
Yeah, I think it is actually a year since I wrote that poem. But at one of the lines that I can remember there, it is not a return of a prodigal son. So for example, it's like I just want to say, portray something there. It is not a village that, even though I am from that, but I am, I have been, disconnected from the place. It is a place that I have been visiting frequently. So that is why I said it is not a return of a prodigal son. It is a place that I am always going to.
Yeah. How I wish we would have time to deal with all your poems, like the African teacher, the society. These are poems that I read and I was seeing you were expressing real emotion in those works. But unfortunately, maybe time will not be on our side. But yet I have another question for you. How do you see poetry or writing in the Gambia? When you're comparing it from today and tomorrow, how do you see poetry today in the Gambia?
Yeah, it is rather unfortunate during those days, even though there were poets, the likes of Tijan Sala, Michael Hamadi Seka, and in the latter years we have the likes of Mamadou Shabali. These were people who did amazing job in creating that space for to inspire some of us. But poetry in this country right now, though we will give credits to the young ones that are coming, but I will say the standard is being compromised. Yesterday I had a discussion with one of the poets. I decided not to mention his name. He sent one of his pieces to the work page. I tried to go under his DM and told him that, look, this is a brilliant piece, but try to add more literary devices, figurative expressions in your poems. So these are the ingredients for a proper poem. A poem which that it is not having these literary devices, a poem which that it is not having this figurative expression, my friend, I don't think that is fit to be called a poetry.
Poetry is not English language.
No. And again, I think they are also trying to intoxicate the nature of writing poetry in this country, especially with the introduction of too much local language in our poetry. It is good to celebrate our local language, but when we are to write poetry in local language, let us do it in a distinct manner, the way the likes of Lending Kitaba and other singers are doing it in our religious ways. But if you want to intoxicate our poetry with not too much of local language, my friend, we are trying to compromise with the standard. So we give them credit for having that artistic nature, for having that brilliant nature to bring that stuff in our poetry. But let them not compromise with the standard. The standard should be there.
Yes, indeed. We have flagrant poets today. A lot of poets who are coming. They are doing different things. But just as I say, I'm just answering. The same thing is what I'm saying. Language. They write language. They don't write a poem. They just write a paragraph. You write a whole poem. You see the imagery. You see the metaphor, the extended metaphors there. naturally, a good poem should give you difficulty in trying to extricate what this message is trying to put. Understand?
Excellent.
Yeah, but recently this poem is just read and you understand barely.
No,
Like
no, no, no. That is,
No,
that is
but
the
I
point.
believe in that aspect, it is the lack of our know-how when it comes to literature. Because I believe when you want to be a very good poet, you should learn the word poetry itself. You should go study about what poetry entails and what literature is all about. So basically, young poets and teachers should teach the students and the poets more of poetry if they are willing to venture in that journey rather than jumping to conclusion, giving us a blank of poetry which is with no imagery or metaphor or simile or whatever, just coming plain to our level of understanding. That is very, very, very awkward. So I believe if you want to be a very good poet, you should just write something that will motivate, that will bring creativity within for people, for your readers to understand, or not to understand what you're trying to say, but will feel the tone, the mood, and everything that it comprises to give a very good piece. I'll conclude by saying thank you so very much for coming to the show, and then I'll allow you to give your concluding remarks,
Thank you very
Mr. Ajabi.
Yeah, thank you very much. You know, there's a reason that I always regard poetry as a religion. You know, it is something which you know that I have, like in one of the poems I said, there's no ploy to joy. Poetry is only is the only means for me to have joy. Like in the words of Landry Banamos, the poetic assassin, it is a drug. It is something which you know that I am addicted to it. But just to come to the closing remark, I think my piece of advice to the young poets and the young poetess that are coming, let them be original and stop being, you know, copying each other. They have to be original, and also they avoid what we refer to as plagiarism. Even if you write which you know that it is a scrap, continue doing that. At the end of the day, you will improve. Writing is something which you know that it is not magic. It does not come overnight. It is something that you have to develop special passion for it. But if you think that copying the likes of Mento or copying the likes of other poets, that is the only way that you are going to reach stardom, my friend, it is far from that. You have to develop within yourself. My first poems that I wrote, if I look back into those poems, I saw a lot of, you know, grammatical errors there. Sometimes they, you know, they don't make any sense to me. But right now, at least I have a little bit improved. I know I am yet to reach the level that I'm always yearning to. But at least I am far better compared to 2013, 2012 when I started writing my first pieces. So let them also start following such steps and remain original. And that is the only way that they can achieve what they want to achieve. Besides, I will thank you very much for giving me this opportunity to share my story with you, and thank you very much.
Okay, before I let you go, I want you to give us a few lines on any of your pieces, because as you call yourself Carl the Poet, I believe you must have some lines with you.
Well,
Yeah.
I have little bit lost inspiration in poetry,
Okay.
unless if I refer myself back to to my phone and see if I can get something. I think I will go to one of my brilliant pieces, that is daytime romance.
Daytime romance.
So this is something which I love. I said daytime romance. We can't wait for another daybreak. Sadness must finally take a break. About time to disregard her presence. Leaving it too late does not have a sense. Another chance is not guaranteed tonight. We will maneuver in a broad daylight. Blind eye will not be given to a daily seduction. We must satisfy a starved emotion. Unexpected loss cannot be hidden. It is a war without ending. My body language lost its resilience. Daytime romance is of essence. We have surmounted the difficult phase. Now let's give romance a new face. Keeping it cool will surely lose a case. Shame can continue frowning her face. Let us have it even on the streets. Old age needs no secret. I want to have another taste of your lips, feeling that can eventually crack a rib. Thank you very much.
Oh, this poem is touching my deep in my bones. Thank you so much. That's romantic.
Viewers, I'll allow Ibrahim, or he calls himself Mentor Boy, so I'll allow him to wrap up, and then
Yes, that takes us to the end of the show. It was an interesting show anyway that we have with Mr. Jabi. Like listening to what he said and the advice he gave out, I believe they are going to contribute to our lives as viewers, or to our lives as young poets who are trying to venture into the arena of poetry. So that's all that we have for you today. Thank you.